Okay, Merry Chessmas. Christmas is closer since I made my last video. I have a splendid game of Alexander Alekhine to show you for an advanced concept. Now, when I say advanced concept, I don't mean something so far beyond our capability to understand. I mean, we're going to see, based on some of his notes I took in this game, what Alekhine saw, because he describes it. He is the white pieces. His opponent is Mikenas. This was played in 1933. This is a very interesting game because of what Alekhine says in it that will help us advance our chess understanding to a deeper level, and that is eventually what we want to get to. I am not, however, going to apologize for repeating a lot of the same kind of information in my videos, because we must be cognizant of so many things every time we play this game. As we practice and repeat, it becomes second nature. It's like doing push-ups. We don't start with 100 push-ups. We start with maybe 2 or 3 and work our way up. How? By doing push-ups every single day for months on end. We are doing mental push-ups with chess, right? How's that for an analogy? That's not bad, right? Come on, it worked. Criminy, give me credit, will you? Okay. Bishop comes up to c4. Knight comes to d7. He castles. Alekhine has now castled his king. And the other knight comes to e7. Then Alekhine stabs this beautiful rook pawn way up there in the middle of nowhere. And then Mikenas castles. And then Alekhine goes the bishop to e3, and he puts h6 out there, and the queen bumps up, and the king comes to h7, and then Alekhine goes h3, and Mikenas puts the c6 pawn up there. Okay, now, at this point, what do we see? Chessboard, you clown. Yes. What does the position show us is the question intended. You have to listen to what I mean, not what I say. Right? Okay, so, really, black is a little less space. White has better space. Again, just basic generalities, something we must do every chess game. Yes? No pieces have been exchanged. Material is even. That also can be an imbalance, of course. They're both okay developed, right? The pawns straight across here look like they're ready to, you know, it's like in the old times, the old lines of foot warriors running at you, you know. That's a pretty solid line, except for this little fella back here. The diagonal is really good for this bishop because he's being kiddoed. The diagonal backed by the queen isn't too bad for here. Yeah, you got a knight that'll bump here, hitting here. You know, you never... the center's pretty... that's pretty contested. So anyway, as a general rule, we don't see anything really odd, do we? And that is why we are not Alexander Alekhine, because he did notice something critically important. Watch how he exploits this. Fantastico. Here's what Alekhine noticed. And Don't forget this. And then I will emphasize how he exploits it and the effect in the game of just this one simple little item. I know, I'm keeping you in suspense. Don't you hate that? Oh, no, no, no. Don't turn off my video. Don't turn off my video. Hold on. Let me show you this. This is one of the best games I've ever seen. What do you notice about that pawn? No, not the dot on it. I did that. I mean the position. Right? There's what caught Alekhine's eye. A weak square. Now, what do you mean by a weak square? Would you mind telling us? Okay. The knight does not protect that pawn. The knight does not protect that pawn. The queen, the bishop, none of the rooks, none of the other pawns protect that pawn. They have come up. Now, had that position been there, that would not be a weak square because the pawn supports the pawn. Okay? So, can you see the difference? This pawn is weak. Oh, yeah. Who gives a flying flip? Just watch. Alekhine goes to bishop f4. Hark! The herald angels sing. Hitting that weak square. Now, Mikenas sees that, and so he alleviates the problem, right? Now, it's not a weak pawn. Now, it's got tremendous strength, and it's hitting his center. Nice. Problem solved. See, that's not that big a deal. Bishop comes back down to d3 because that was a pretty good fork, and he's going to lose the center battle because those pawns are so strong if he would have taken it with that. So he had to bump his bishop down. See? Not a big deal. And now he goes to a6 to keep the to lessen the influence of the knight, the bishop, etc. And now, if you were white, what would you do? Here's what Alekhine did. He said, I don't care that that pawn advanced. It's the square that's weak. Look at that bishop. Wow. Yeah. Nice. Now, Mikenas, I'm already pronouncing the poor guy's name wrong. I do that with about half these people, don't I? You know, obviously I don't know a damn thing about chess. I can't even get the names right? Mikenas bumps up the f5. Now watch what Alekhine does. This is fabulous, and it affects the rest of the game. No, he did not move his king there. That does not address the issue. What he did, instead of taking the pawn, he made his bishop impenetrable. We are talking rock solid, man. Right in the heart of Black's position. Mamma mia! That is outrageous. We're only barely on move 14. Right? Watch what happens because of this. Rook goes to g8. Okay? Alekhine pushes the h. Mikenas Mikenas bumps the pawn up. Knight comes to e2. Knight comes to f8, protecting the king. And now Alekhine pushes this pawn. And here is why he said he pushed the pawn. Here's the other observation that some of us may not grasp, but we're going to after tonight's game. What this pawn did is it forced Mikenas to bump up. What does that do for black's position? Look carefully, because once I show it to you, you'll never not see it again. But if you don't know what you're looking for, you may not see it. He says, what you must grasp here is that pawn is on white, 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 that rook's on white, that bishop's on white, that rook's on white, that king's on white. What an enormous sense of weak, dark squares in black's position. Isn't that mind-boggling? Now when you look at it, you go, wow, really? Black influences none of the dark squares hardly. That's staggering. And right in the heart, Alekhine owns the dark squares. This is critical in this entire game. That weak square of black and all of the rest of the dark squares. This is very educational for us. Whoops. Alekhine goes to g3, and he says what this does is it guarantees there's not going to be an attack on my king, and if there is, I'm not going to have any weak spots that black can exploit. That is. Okay, so we got that. So, okay, rook goes to h8 now. Now, king comes up to g2, a very important move. King goes back to g8, and now the rook over to h1, of course. That's so Alekhine. He does that all the time. It's awesome. King, now look at the king starting to scurry. He says, yeah, I know what this guy's up to, man. He's going to try to ram this pawn up and come up through the open file. And I want nothing to do with it. I'm going to get my king out of here. I'm going to try to get my king over to this square if I can help it. He can't, but that's what he wants to do. Now, look at that beautiful post. Remember, the dark squares are weak in black. That means the white squares are targets. That square beautifully hits those two weak pawns around the king. Very interesting. Just exquisite. Well, rook comes back over to g8. And now he goes to b3. And this move assures that Alekhine is going to be able to initiate the breakthrough. And the way he's going to do that is with this c pawn. And he's going to bring it right up into here, and he's going to ram this place open. He owns the center and the dark squares. Now he wants, wait for it, the open file. It's not open yet. No kidding, cowboy. You open the file. Watch how he does this. This is fabulous. So the knight comes here to help protect the king, and he just guns it. He goes. He says, C4, let's do this. Let's get this done. So the bishop comes up to D7, and now the queen rook comes to C1. It's inevitable. It will happen. This file will open for white. Very interesting how this works. Bishop comes down to F8. Have you started to see something? The king bounces around on these squares. The knight bounces back and forth around these squares. The rook comes back and forth here and there and here and there and here and there and here and there and here and there. And in the meantime, Alekhine, by pushing his pawn, by moving his rook, by placing his bishop, by placing his knights correctly, has steadily improved his position. Black is so cramped. Again, the imbalance. Worth repeating, I promise. Space advantage absolutely on white's side. Because of that, this bishop has been paralyzing the black's position. He can't find anywhere to go. His black squares are all weak, and his own pawns are betraying his entire army. There is no peace past the second rank. Keep your eye on these things when you're playing, Carrie. I'm speaking to me, not you guys. I am speaking to you guys. But look, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces past the second rank. And now he's going to have another one that goes all the way through. That's really instructive. This game, for all intents and purposes, is essentially over. And there hasn't even been any peace exchanged yet. Strategically, white has already won. Now it's just a matter of going through it. Isn't that fascinating? Come on, that's fascinating. Okay, quit talking. Show us what happens. Okay, here we go. Bishop comes down. Knight comes over. Yeah, now he's lost another power to the first rank. Wow, right? Bam, he pulls the trigger. Let's open the file. Now, you really do own the center totally, and you really do have total control of all the dark squares totally. Now you dominate and own the file totally, and your influence on the king side is absolutely overwhelming. That's worth looking at, man. It's worth looking at. That is something else. So, C responds, and now the file is white's. Now, what do you do with the file? You use it, right? The bishop has served his purpose. He has so crammed black in this corner, and he has helped open the file, that he can now get rid of the good bishop. Yes? And the knight responds and takes the bishop. And now, what do you do with the open file? You use it. Dirty Harry blowing off his .44 Magnum. Bang! What a power move. And you say, that doesn't do a thing. Don't kid yourself. Knight comes to A7. And now, knight comes to D3. You notice he can manipulate his pieces a lot better than black. He's certainly a lot better coordinated. Once again, the bishop, how many, king, I meant king. How many moves has that king made this game? 5, 6? All within just that small little corner. And look at the difference of the positions. And hence the influence. I mean, that's a lesson here, guys. I am so serious. And now, rook comes to c1. What do you do with open files? You put your rooks on them. What do you do once you do that? You use those as highways into your opponent's position. This is what we're seeing, right? Now, of course, really, you can't let your opponent, if you ever are in, you can't let him have that file like that. No, you have to start swapping the rooks. Really seriously. That's the way to fight a double rooked open file. I'm so not kidding. So, rook takes c8, of course. And the bishop will take the rook. So, one pair of rooks has been exchanged, but white is still owning that open file. And what does he do? He keeps using it. He maintains the overwhelming power of the open file. Okay, I got rid of a rook. Look. Alekhine can increase the strength of that open file. But the other rook was never connected here. It's way over here. It can't take it away again. It's good to know. It's good to see. And all of the squares that pieces are on in the dark camp, every one of them are weak. Every one of them. Every dark square, whether it has a piece on it or not, is weak. That is phenomenal. And that, of course, makes hash of black's game. So, there's not a lot you can do. Again, how many times? The king moves again. Where does the queen go? Same place that first rook went. c5, on the outpost. Why not? Yeah, look at this influence here, man. So, rook tries to say, okay, look, I got to at least guard my second rank. You know, I'm not doing a lot down there. And now watch. I mean, we're talking screws in the thumbs, and now he's twisting them. Let's trade queens, cowboy. Mikenas knows better than that. He can't possibly trade queens right now. He said, What do you do with an open file? You use it. So what's he doing? Another piece. That is the fourth piece, you guys. Fourth piece to use that open file. And look at the effect. Watch. This is exquisite. Well, Mikenas now realizes, hey, I have to try. I gotta get some space. I'm getting choked here. Right? Well, take the pawn, of course. Yes, every exchange from here on out is in favor of white. At this point, Mikenas has no coordination of pieces, no nothing. Knight comes down here to e1. It's the back step boogie that Jeremy Silman talks about. Alekhine did it before Jeremy Silman was a Twinkie in his mama's eye, or a twinkle in his mama's eye. This is really nice. So, knight comes up to g6. Well, hey, at last, we at least get a piece on the third rank. That is the first time in the game that someone has come past the second rank. Wow! Now the knight comes up to d3, giving support to the knight. And where is he? Open file. Why does he do that? He'll show you. Now he's marching. Mikenas is finally getting to kind of get something going, at least with pawns at this point. Yes. Rook bumps over here, h1. Check. Open file, constantly being used by his pieces. Hey, look, I've got another open file and I've got a king in it. Who's using the open files? Yeah. Yeah. Now, the bishop comes to g4. The power of that bishop is really something else, as we'll see. Watch. Now, f takes g3. Finally, he got something that looks kind of threatening, right? No, not even close. Not even close. F takes g3. Now, at this point, Alekhine noted, look at that knight file. It looks like a quadruple decker sandwich, doesn't it, man? A king on one end and a king on the other, and almost the entire file has pieces on it. That's quite colorful, isn't it? That's fascinating. I loved that comment. So Mikenas says, okay, finally I get a safe check to the king. Big deal. The pawn takes the knight. Mikenas has nothing else to do. And the pawn takes the pawn. And the knight comes down here to f2. And the rook comes over here to f7. Hey! An open file! And black finally gets to have one. How about that? Congratulations, dude. You've done a good job. However, now, the attack is incredible. Knight takes the pawn. And Mikenas is going, yeah, this is not good. No, I'm not comfortable here at all. And then, bam. Now, at this point, Mikenas is just darn near forced to exchange queens. And he can't. He can't afford to. His position is just pure heck. So it was here that he resigned. My suspicion is, because, and I worked out just a quick variation, there's probably a lot of them, I'm sure. If the queen takes the queen, then the rook takes the pawn, check. And the king would come to g8. And then the pawn would become a passed pawn, a very dangerous passed pawn, eliminating the queen. And the bishop would take the knight. Could. This is one variation. And then, of course, the bishop takes the bishop and skewers the rook to the king. And you've got 1, 2, 3 pieces, and black is left with 2 pieces and a completely open king. So, really, truly, he resigned appropriately, but won the weak square. And he attacked it relentlessly, non-stop. That weak square backed by 2 pawns, that position was a killer. And he got it right within the first 9 moves, or 10 moves, interestingly enough. After that, the open files. The open files just, and he used them well. He used them with both rooks. He used them with the queen. He used them with his knight. Yes. Beautiful, beautiful lessons. And the final thing is the astonishing weak dark squares in black's own side. So there is a wallop of a chess lesson for you. You might want to watch this video 5 or 6 times, or else at least write down the moves and then study it out on your own chessboard. My channel has become monetized. If you would like to help me, I would appreciate you clicking on it. Truly. The ads have great products. If you want to buy some of those products, buy them through the ads on my site, and that will help me a little bit. And I would appreciate it. So, anyway, There's your chessercise. Happy checkmating. Be good, do well, have fun. Thanks, and come again, because I've got more videos coming down the pipeline.